episode number 50 of Krocking, Locking and Dropping with the K-Rock. Yay! Hooray! Yes, we've made it. The 50th episode of Krocking, Locking and Dropping with the K-Rock. Oh my goodness gracious, I never thought in a million years I would ever reach this milestone. But man, I'll tell you what, I am so glad that I have made this 50th episode, and you know what? I should just go ahead and reward myself. Well, as of right now, I am currently at a Sonic waiting for a nice, delicious red velvet milkshake. Can you believe they're actually serving red velvet milkshakes as of this moment right now? It's only for a limited time, so if you ever drive by a Sonic and you want to try the red velvet milkshake, be my guest. It is good. So I am rewarding myself with that for making it to 50 episodes of Krocking, Locking, and Dropping with the K-Rock. Guys, I know that the last few days you haven't heard much of a podcast from me, and I know we're getting close to, well, we're actually in the process of starting another NFL week. I am going to get this out immediately. Unfortunately, it is going to be without one game. When I do my NFL predictions, don't worry about that, folks. I will be making up for that by having predictions of the other games that I wanted to talk about as well. And so, folks, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the NFL in particular. So I wanted to start off with the big matchup this week between the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is a matchup that I truly think is going to be a big one for both franchises because, who knows, this could be a potential playoff matchup. If not this year, then maybe next year as well. Then, of course, I want to get something. I wanted to talk about a vacation situation for me. I'm going to be discussing that in just a few moments. But first and foremost, guys, I don't know about you, but just when you thought the New York Jets couldn't get any dumber as a franchise, there was an article that was published, I believe, on the New York Times, either that or the Athletic, or actually it was the New York Times. But the article was talking about how Woody Johnson, the owner of the New York Jets, actually nixed a trade that would have involved Jerry Jeudy, who is currently the wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. And, you know, it's a very particular thing. Or actually, he's with the Cleveland Browns now, but at the time, he was with the Denver Broncos. So there was an article that had just been published, and there was a certain section about this that has really been, you know, getting on the fans' nerves, or at least something that was said in this article that really caught my attention, just to show you how bad things are in the New York Jets organization. But anyways, the article says here that a few weeks later, Joe Douglas, the general manager for the New York Jets, and his Broncos counterpart, George Patton, who was the general manager for the Denver Broncos, they were deep in negotiations for a trade that would have sent Jeudy to the Jets and given future Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers another potential playmaker. The Broncos felt a deal was near, then abruptly it all fell apart. In Denver's executive offices, they couldn't believe the reason why. Douglas told the Broncos that Woody Johnson didn't want to make the trade because the owner felt that Jeudy's player rating in Madden NFL, the popular video game, wasn't high enough according to multiple league sources. You heard that right, ladies and gentlemen. Woody Johnson nixed the trade because he did not like Jerry Jeudy's player rating in Madden. I'm sorry, what? Guys, I thought I've heard it all. Really, I thought I've heard all the dumb excuses for why the trade was nixed and this and that, yada, yada, yada. But seriously, you're going to base a trade off of whether or not a player actually has a great Madden rating or not? Like, are you kidding me? I mean, Woody Johnson, the owner of the dysfunctional New York Jets, who already has a polarizing quarterback who just had a Netflix documentary released about him, and the Jets are just a terrible franchise, And it's funny that I think about this because I was watching a documentary last night about the New York Jets defense from the 1980s, the New York Sack Exchange, they called it, where you had four guys that were all great defenders, but they really were very dysfunctional, had some issues, they couldn't get along, and never really could get the Jets to the Super Bowl. But man, I just feel bad for Jets fans right now. Like, I cannot believe that the owner of the New York Jets would, based upon a trade, whether he liked it or not, based upon a Madden rating. Now, listen, folks, I love the Madden games. Don't get me wrong, I do. But you cannot base a trade off of someone's Madden rating. Like, okay, I don't know what Jerry Jeudy's rating was. Maybe it was like, I don't know. I'm going to guess like a 73 or a 76. I don't know. It's somewhere in that rating. You can't just say that because that's just someone's opinion. That's just what Madden feels about a certain player. It doesn't mean that they are right. It just means that this is what they base it off of. The player itself may not have that rating if we were talking about human, real, actual human values and traits that they bring to the table. But the fact is, it's a silly thing. I mean, everybody makes a big deal about, oh, what's your Madden rating? Oh, I'm an 82 or an 83, you know, like, get real. It doesn't mean you're going to be an 82 or an 83, or if you have a guy like that's a 99. Like, there's nobody on the NFL that is a 99 NFL rate or Madden rating out there playing the game. Nobody. I mean, look, you could say Patrick Mahomes has that rating, but you can't really say that he will always play like a 99 Madden player in every NFL game he's played in. I mean, oh my goodness. The New York Jets themselves again. And Joe Douglas, who unfortunately is no longer with the New York Jets at this moment, they're currently looking for a new general manager. You have to feel for him because I'm sure he wanted Jerry Jeudy, but unfortunately, it's just really stupid. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, that was the craziest thing that I saw today. I never thought I would actually see that in person, in a sense. So, anyways, folks, I just got my red velvet cake milkshake, and I'm gonna have it, enjoy it. When I come back, though, we're gonna talk a little more NFL as the Houston Texans are set to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Folks, we are just done with our first NFL segment, which wasn't really much of an NFL segment. It was just a stupid trade that was nixed for a very stupid reason. Madden ratings, of course. What is your Madden rating, by the way? I forgot to ask that before we went to the break. What is your Madden rating? Feel free to comment down below on my YouTube channel when I post these podcasts on these websites. And, of course, also to Spotify and Podbean as well. So, right now, we're going to be talking about another NFL segment, and this one is a big matchup. It is between the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is going to get his first taste of C.J. Stroud and the Texans. And, of course, the defense as well for the Texans, but we'll get more into that in just a moment. Now, there were some concerns about Patrick Mahomes because in the last game, he actually injured his ankle, and it didn't look too good when you saw him get carted off. Not like immediate, but he walked off field and then he was carted off in the tunnel after the game or so. And you just had to wonder how concerning it was. If you were a Chiefs fan, you had to be very concerned because, I mean, it just didn't look too good. Patrick Mahomes obviously makes the Kansas City Chiefs the best team in the NFL. Now, I know the Kansas City Chiefs haven't played the best football lately. You can argue that the Buffalo Bills have played much better football than the Kansas City Chiefs, considering that, A, they have scored more points. They had the front-runner candidate as the MVP position in Josh Allen. And B, they did beat the Kansas City Chiefs for their only loss of the season. But regardless of how Buffalo is doing, everybody knows that the top target is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Kansas City, it's been a very interesting situation. Usually, when you have a team that's 13-1 after 14 games, you have to think, oh, this has to be a very dominant team. Like they must be killing these opponents. Like they must be so dominant and strong that they are just winning out. Well, I'm afraid that's not quite been the case. There is a little bit of a downside to the start. I saw a stat not too long ago where I saw that the Kansas City Chiefs were 10-0 when it came to one-score games. 10-0 in one-score games. Now look, it's hard to win in the NFL. I get that. You always are going to have to figure out a way to win the games down the stretch. You're behind, you're tied, or you have to find a way to win those games. And clearly, Kansas City has shown that it can win the clutch games as well. But the fact is, the Kansas City Chiefs are the two-time defending Super Bowl champions and are looking to become the first team in NFL history to win 3 Lombardi trophies, which would more than elevate what has already been a dominant dynasty for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I said that after they won the second Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles, that they were already a dynasty. 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. That's a dynasty. But by them winning the Super Bowl last year only elevated that. So if the Chiefs were to win it again, they more than earned their spot in the upper echelon of all the great sports dynasties in NFL history. But that's for the time to be remaining. But here's the thing. The Kansas City Chiefs, they find ways to win games. Like, they're 10-0 in one-score games. And that is a testament to how good this team has been. Now, a lot of times fans are going to say, well, wait a minute. The Kansas City Chiefs are not defeating these teams. They are getting the fortunate breaks. They are best friends with the refs. Teams can't capitalize on winning games down the stretch. A missed field goal, missed defensive assignment, and all that, or controversial penalty in a way. And yet somehow the Kansas City Chiefs are still finding ways to get the job done. So clearly, the Chiefs are a team that is benefiting from the fact that they are still winning games.
They're the top seed in the AFC, which means that they will more than likely finish with the best record in all of the NFL, and that also means that they will be having home field advantage throughout the playoffs yet again. And playing at Arrowhead Stadium, mind you, has been a very tough nightmare scenario for all the other teams that have tried their luck against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you think about all the great teams they face. They took on the Buffalo Bills and have beaten them. They took on the Baltimore Ravens and have beaten them. They took on the Cincinnati Bengals. And even though the Bengals did get to Kansas City a couple years ago, Kansas City would get their revenge. And since then, that rivalry has leaned more in favor of Kansas City, whereas Cincinnati has kind of fallen off a little bit in some downtimes. So in essence, you're talking about Kansas City having to take on some great challenges. The question, though, becomes, who is their next challenge? Which brings me to a team that I think maybe has a legitimate chance of knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs in a playoff situation. And that team, of course, is going to be Kansas City's next opponent this coming Saturday. I'm talking, of course, about the Houston Texans. Now, make no mistake, the Texans have been on a roller coaster ride of emotions. You're talking about a team that entered the season as expected to have one of the top offenses in the game, but that has completely not lived up to the hype. You're talking about a team that has 9-5 overall and have already clinched the AFC South Championship, so they will be going back to the playoffs and will be hosting at least a wild card game. But you're also talking about a team that had the Rookie of the Year in C.J. Stroud, and Stroud has put up some very similar numbers, but yet it's hard to look at it because of the fact that he has been bamboozled by and pressured more than any other quarterback this season. The offensive line has not been up to par, and there have been some struggles along the interior line. and Stroud unfortunately has been pressured and sacked quite a lot this season. To make matters even worse, you've had a number of injuries this season. Houston hasn't been as healthy of a team all throughout until as of lately, although they're still trying to work out some of the kinks. Stephon Diggs, the guy that they brought in the offseason from Buffalo, out for the season with an ACL injury. Jalen Petrie, who was really having a tremendous defensive season, unfortunately is out with a torn labrum. He had surgery on it, and he will miss the rest of the season, but we do hope for a very speedy recovery and for a very fully healthy season from him next year. And then, of course, you have the unfortunate suspension of Al-Aziz Shaair, who has served one suspension and will need to serve two more because of the controversial hit on Trevor Lawrence. Call it what you will, but we'll just leave it at that. And his presence has definitely been missed out, to say the least. But the one thing, though, that has kept the Texans at least relevant this season has been their outstanding defense. I mean, you look at Danico Autry, Will Anderson Jr., they're plugging up the holes through the gaps of the offensive line, getting to the quarterbacks. And then, of course, the ball hawks. Derek Stingley Jr., who a couple years ago was being questioned as to whether or not he was the better pick for the Texans over Sauce Gardner. Now remember, Derek Stingley Jr. was the third pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, and he had a great college career at LSU. Don't get me wrong, he was on the national championship team alongside with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but he's had an injury history up to that stage, and the only thing that really was well known for him was that Stingley's grandfather was the late Darryl Stingley, who unfortunately was paralyzed after an on-field collision with Jack Tatum, the former Raider defensive back in the 1970s. It was a very unfortunate situation, but Derek Stingley Jr. Came into the league, and a lot of people were wondering if he was the right pick because Sauce Gardner, who was drafted by the Jets in the fourth overall pick, had a great career at Cincinnati, led them to the college football playoff, which at the time was 4 games. And most people were thinking that Sauce would be the better player because he didn't allow a single touchdown on anyone in his season, or that was a stat that I read. And it looked like after the rookie season, Sauce was winning the battle. But over the last 2 seasons, it seems as though Derek Stingley Jr. has taken the lead and more. And right now, Stingley, who I believe has 10 interceptions on the year, including 2 in the last game against Miami, which was a tremendous performance for him, has taken the lead, and he has been in ball hawk for the Texans defense. And then, of course, you have the rookies of Kalen Bullock and Kamari Lassiter, 2 guys that have potential to really help the Texans secondary dominate for years to come. So the Texans defense has really kept themselves at a strong foot. And a couple episodes I talked about this, how the Texans somewhat have a similar identity to the 2000 Baltimore Ravens in that they have a very dominant defense. Not saying it's the best defense ever, but they have a dominant defense that's carrying the team, and the offense has been somewhat conservative, which isn't really something you would expect for someone like C.J. Stroud, who's the quarterback, expected to be a guy that could potentially win an MVP or so down the line. But, with how things are going right now, the Texans are relying on a very strong defense and an offense to do just enough to win some games. I don't like it personally, and I know a lot of Texans fans wish that the Texans offense would put up more points, because that's always going to be a question unless they change their ability or unless they win a Super Bowl, hypothetically speaking. But so far, it's been kind of working for them to this stage. So now, and then of course, remember that stat I talked about how Kansas City was 10-0? Well, the Texans have also had some experience in close games. Their record just isn't better. They're 7-4 in one-score games. That is insane when you really think about it, considering the fact that some of the games the Texans should have won. In my personal opinion, they should have won against the Green Bay Packers earlier in the year, and they should have won against the Detroit Lions, who they intercepted Jared Goff 5 times, okay? How can you lose a game when your defense intercepts the ball 5 times? That's just ridiculous. But hey, it is what it is. The Texans are 9-5, and they're taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is a pretty big matchup when you look at it. considering the fact that Kansas City and Houston's already secured playoff spots, it's more than likely that we're not going to be getting the full upper echelon in terms of a dominant game between the two sides. But we could be getting a game where a lot of fans might look at this and say, you know what? There may be a new challenge for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Texans might be the team that could challenge the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, don't get me wrong. The Chiefs are a tier above the Texans right now if you look at it. Despite the fact that Kansas City has played in 10 one-score games and have been fortunate to win 13 of 14 to this point, the Chiefs are still the better team. And, I mean, from a terms of experience and everything, whereas the Texans are still kind of climbing. I feel like Houston needs a couple more pieces, maybe some help with another receiver because of the depth that's been plagued by injuries, maybe help with the offensive line for sure, and certainly maybe another defensive presence. But the thing is, the Texans are still a team that's a scary team when you think about it. Like, if I were a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I would feel confident that we would win this game, but I would also feel very concerned because the last time that the Texans met the Chiefs, this was when Davis Mills was the quarterback, and the Texans were a terrible team. They somehow managed to take Kansas City to overtime, and they somehow managed to force a stop on Kansas City and got the ball back, had a chance to go down the field and win the game. But they fumbled the ball, and Kansas City recovered, and they ended up kicking the winning field goal to beat the Houston Texans in a tight thriller of a game. So now we're talking about a couple of years later. Where did the Kansas City Chiefs stack up? Or actually, where did the Houston Texans stack up with the Kansas City Chiefs? I think that's the big question that fans want to know. Is this Texans team a team that is very capable of beating the Kansas City Chiefs? Or are we going to find out that there are still some things that need to be done for Houston to be taken seriously as a championship contending team? I mean, look, this will be a big game regardless. And a lot of fans are going to look at this as a big test. This stretch, this 3 games in 11-day stretch by the Texans was definitely an eye-opener for the franchise. Now, I'll say one thing, though. There has been some talking going on with the Texans on the Texans side, and they have basically said that, unfortunately have put in some bulletin board material, which, again, you don't want to do that if you're the Houston Texans, in a sense. I understand being confident and all that, but Tim Settle, come on now. Tim Settle was interviewed in a game, and he said, quote, "I feel like I could take advantage of the Chiefs' offensive line. Mahomes is a little banged up. I don't know if he's going to play or not, but I hope he's mobile because we come in an Arrowhead." And he then took a direct shot at Mahomes, which amplifies the tension. Mahomes better make a good decision. I ain't making no threats. I'm making promises. Okay, Tim. I like that you're bringing an attitude of confidence and swagger to the Texans, which is something that you don't want to do. But then again, you got to back it up, okay? You have to back it up and say, this is the reason why we believe we can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You can't just talk the talk. You got to walk the walk. And knowing Patrick Mahomes, despite the fact that he has injured, of course he's going to play this Saturday, which is the good confirmation. Patrick Mahomes can still make plays. He is probably as dynamic of a quarterback as I have seen. Tom Brady cannot do the stuff that Mahomes has done. Peyton Manning couldn't do the stuff that Mahomes has done. Like a guy that throws behind the back passes, sidearm throws and all that. I mean, it's just totally insane with how Patrick Mahomes has been able to elevate himself to being arguably the second greatest quarterback of all time. I think he's got ways to go before he can eclipse Tom Brady as the best quarterback of all time. But, I mean, we're talking about a situation, a guy that came in and has elevated the Kansas City Chiefs to becoming the team that they are at the moment. So now, Tim Settle has already said that he is challenging Patrick Mahomes. Okay, Tim, you got to back it up. The defense has got to back it up. And that's the pressure of putting this game. If the Texans lose this game, look, Kansas City was expected to win, but the Texans really took themselves out of the equation when they started talking the talk and all that. So that's the way I look at it. So a lot of pressure for the Texans to perform, but certainly I think from Houston's perspective, this is a game that I think would give them confidence if they win. Because now, afterwards, you got the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas Day, which is a 4-day period from the last game to the Christmas Day. And this Texans team could actually put themselves back into the conversation of potential AFC championship threats. And obviously, if you think about the AFC landscape, you have the Chiefs number 1, Buffalo's a close number 2. I'm going to put Baltimore probably a number 3 because even though Pittsburgh has the better record, I still think that they're not quite a team that I can see getting to the AFC Championship game, even with Russell Wilson at the quarterback position. I think Pittsburgh's going to need a little more to go right for them at this stage. But the Texans have an opportunity to get themselves back into the conversation because they've kind of fallen off, and a lot of people seem to have written them off in a sense because of how they played over the last in this game prior to the game against Miami. So for the time being, Houston is going to go into this matchup with Kansas City looking to get themselves a big win. Now, I'm glad that Patrick Mahomes is going to play because if he wasn't going to play, this would have been a lose-lose situation for Houston when you think about it. Patrick Mahomes doesn't play. The Texans win the game. Well, the only reason why the Texans won the game was because Mahomes was hurt. He couldn't play. But imagine if Mahomes had been playing, he would definitely have found a way to beat Houston. But if the Texans lose to the game to Carson Wentz, who was the backup quarterback to the Chiefs, how can you lose the game to Carson Wentz, who, look, has had experience, but he hasn't been what Mahomes has been, man? How can you lose to that? Then, of course, they could also say, well, the Chiefs are just the Chiefs. They're going to find ways to win games, even if Mahomes isn't playing. So this is a big game for Houston. And I don't know what's going to happen as far as this Saturday is concerned. I just hope that the Texans can find a way to play well and get the job done. I'll make my prediction on how I think that game is going to come out in just a moment. But I'll just say this. If the Texans win, this game should put them back into the conversation of AFC contention. Now, I don't think it will lead to anything other than the Super Bowl, although I will say, and I did talk about this on my other podcast, and yes, folks, let me interrupt that thought, because I just had a conversation with Mark T. Robinson, and folks, we have our episode 50 coming out on Spotify, Amazon, and all those other podcasts, Apple Podcasts as well. And we are back with that episode of Two Pals on the Pod. So I'm glad to know that Mark and I got together to shoot a podcast episode. And so, folks, I did talk about how I wanted the Texans to reach the AFC Championship game because I am getting sick and tired of just winning the division, just making the playoffs, and, winning the wild card game and unfortunately losing out in the divisional round because I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of all that, and at some point, the Texans need to get to the AFC Championship game. It's no longer just get to the playoffs. It's no longer just get to the divisional round. It is now become you must get to the AFC Championship game. I don't know if the Texans will be able to do it this year, but I hope they do. If they do, that would be a big accomplishment. Still, they got some things they need to figure out, and hopefully Houston can find a way to get themselves a W there, and I'll have my predictions on that game in just a moment. So basically, my entire thoughts for Houston and Kansas City, this has the potential to be an AFC Championship matchup, and if it's possible, I would like the Texans to beat the team to beat Kansas City. But we'll wait and see on that as we get set to move on to my next segment. And folks, I'm going to step aside from the NFL for just a little bit, and I'm going to be talking about something that I wanted to get off my chest for the time being. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Now, folks, as of this podcast, Christmas is here. Well, it's getting really close to being here. It's only a few days away, but folks, I got to tell you what, I love Christmas. I enjoy all the festivities. I enjoy the carols. I enjoy, just the opportunity to feel like you're part of a Christmas environment where everybody comes together and just enjoys spending time with family and all the extra stuff that comes with it as well. However, folks, I'm going to be real honest here. I have been feeling a little bit down on Christmas for the last few years. I can't really say how far it's been or how long it's been, but I just feel like Christmas has been a bit of a letdown for me ever since then. Look, don't get me wrong, Christmas is my favorite holiday, but it just seems like every Christmas, I don't know what it is. Maybe there's just the situation that I'm in now. Maybe it's just the feelings that I have about the holidays. It's just been a bit of a letdown because over the last few years, Christmas for me has been spending time with my family members, with my mom and dad and my brother Andrew and my sister Abby, all at my parents' place, which is, I say it's outside of Houston, but it's really not that outside of Houston. Like, I'm always going to be a Houston person, and I still would like to go back and live there again. But for the time being, that is not the case, as we are currently outside of the city. And I have to go there and pretty much at my parents' place, which has a lot of acres and a lot of farmland. And yeah, that's just how I see it. So for me, Christmas has just kind of been a letdown. And I know that every Christmas is different. Everybody has a different Christmas experience, but it's really hard for me when you see your friends and family or friends and close friends and their families, having like this Christmas vibe atmosphere. They're wearing matching pajamas. They're getting to see Santa Claus. Some of them are actually taking trips around the country and around the world to, celebrate the holidays, if they have the opportunity to do so. And, in my case, that hasn't happened yet, just because I'm 33 years old, I'm single, I live in an apartment by myself, and I got a nice job, which I love to do, but, at times I just sometimes wish that I get an opportunity to, experience the Christmas vibes in a way. Fortunately, things are going to be a little bit different this year because my family and I are going to go on a nice Christmas vacation. Yes, that's right, Christmas vacation, National Lampoon style. Well, I don't know about National Lampoon style. I don't know if Chevy Chase would appreciate me saying that. But we are going to go on a Christmas trip, and I can't tell you where it is. I know where we're going, but I don't want to spoil it for everyone because I want everyone to feel very surprised because, folks, I got to tell you what. I never, went on a Christmas trip before. Well, let me put it this way. Previous Christmases have always involved me hanging out with the family, going out to Louisiana to visit my dad's side of the relatives for Christmas, and then also staying in Houston for my mom's side of the relatives. One time we actually went to Galveston to spend Christmas afterwards, and that was pretty cool, although it was pretty cold in Galveston, a place that's normally accustomed for summertime. So I'm excited to be going on a Christmas vacation. A little nervous about all that, but I'm just really looking forward to the opportunity. Now, it is kind of a weird situation for me because I've always envisioned myself going on a nice little vacation retreat where it feels like a Hallmark Christmas special. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you've probably seen those Hallmark Channel movies, which I have some opinions about that, but at this point, for my life, I kind of want to have that experience of what it's like to be Christmas. And, Christmas over the past few years has been kind of dull, but in a good way. And I'm kind of nervous because this is a new experience that I'm about to have. And it's probably going to be, at least for the time being, the only different experience of Christmas that I will ever have. Pending, of course, that I do meet a woman who I end up falling in love, getting married, and start raising a family and everything. But that's for a different time zone or a different life, if that ever were to happen. But for me, I just feel like I've always wanted to experience something, some kind of vibe, some kind of Christmas feeling that doesn't involve going to my parents' place or not being able to see my friends or hang out with them. Because I could easily hang out with my friends, if I could, but they're so busy with their Christmases, and some of them already are married and have kids, and I don't want to interrupt their family time. And that's what's really the hardest part about it. Like, I haven't been able to hang out with some of my friends just because I've been so busy, and I'm only a couple hours or an hour and a half away from them, whereas others, I have to, I'm like 4 to 5 hours away, and that's just, that's just hard to deal with, and but this is really for me an opportunity to experience something that I don't know if I'll ever experience again. I hope that's not true. I hope I get more experiences like this in the future, but this is an opportunity that I am really looking forward to going to a certain location, this specific location, and I have to pack. And, you know, there are very few places in the world that I look at on TV or watch movies, and I sometimes wish I would like to go there as well. For starters, let me talk about the big cities that I've gone to. I've been to New York City. I've been to Chicago. I've been to Boston. I've been to London. I've been to Paris. I've been to Mumbai. Well, actually, I've been there for a number of months. I've been to Singapore also for a number of months. Yeah, like those are the only big, out of places that I've been to. But other than that, I've been to Dallas. I've been to Denver. I've been to California once, but only to San Diego. I haven't been to LA, and I would like to go to LA. I will admit I have dreamed about living there, but for the time being, I just don't know if it's the right time to go to LA at this stage, just because of different policies and, certain feuds over certain sports teams, but I'll just save that. I won't get into it that much as well. I would like to go to LA, but not right now at this point. So, my biggest thing, though, is that I'm just kind of worried that, if I go to a certain place, I might not be able to blend in, or I might feel like I might not be able to acquaint myself with the location. Like, everybody goes on a tourist place. Everybody goes on tours to different places, and that's the case with us at this specific city. But I just feel like, I don't know if it's just me feeling like I can't ever get to those places by myself just because of the way I feel in my life. I struggle to make the finances. Like, I pay the bills. I got a good salary. It's not the most incredible, iconic salary like maybe Stephen A. Smith or Shohei Ohtani or Juan Soto, who recently signed that ridiculous 17 or 15-year deal for New York Mets. It's not that kind of salary. If it was, then, man, I could take all the vacations I want in the world. But, I guess for me, being able to go on a vacation, whether it's during Christmas time, whether it's during the summer, or whether it's, whenever, it's just hard for me at this stage. Like, growing up as a kid, I used to go travel a lot. Like, I went to Orlando down to Disney World. I went to Arizona for spring training baseball games. I went to Washington, D.C., and, I've done skiing a couple of times in Utah or in Colorado. And then, I'm trying to see if there was another place I went to. Baseball games in Chicago and Milwaukee and New York and Boston as well. But that's, again, similar situation. But yeah, like, this, to me, this location that I'm going to is the ideal dream vacation for me. And, sure, I have a crazy imagination. I like to think of myself going to this particular place, looking around and seeing all the glorious sights of nature's view and the beauty of the planet Earth from a different perspective than the one that I'm accustomed to here. And, just seeing, being around people. And, sometimes I play out scenarios in my head of things that are probably going to happen or could happen, but more than likely will not. And it's just hard for me to kind of get myself prepared and pumped up because I am excited for this trip. Don't get me wrong. But it's one of those things where you wonder, are you even ready for this trip? Because I sometimes think that there are very few places that I would like to go that I don't know if I'll be able to go. I don't know if I'll get to Los Angeles. I don't know if I'll get to Vegas. I don't know if I will get to Canada or Mexico. I mean, I've gotten close to the border of Mexico, but I can't cross it, unfortunately. I don't even know if I'll be able to get to Australia. And, I really like to travel, but there's just been some insecurities I've had lately when it comes to traveling. Like, I'll tell you what, folks, I have 9 flights this month. 9. And so far, I've accomplished 5. I've never in my entire life went a month where I've had close to 10 flights a month. It's insane. Like, usually my dad, worked in a business, and he would sometimes have months where he would go at least get on 9 flights. Like, he'll probably get on a plane from the airport in Houston and then fly out to a certain city, then get on another plane and then fly further out, and then come back and repeat and do it all over again. And then a couple weeks later, he'll go from Houston to another city and then come back, and then he'll do it again by the end of the month. That's just the way it is with him. It's just traveling. And so far, I've gone on 5 flights. I went on 5 flights with our women's basketball team. We went to Harlingen, Texas, which is in South Texas, so that way we would drive over to Edinburgh to play one game. And then we flew up to Dallas and then made a hop over to Lubbock, Texas to take on Texas Tech. Flew back to Dallas and then flew back to Houston, got in a little late, and were able to make the drive back in foggy conditions. So those are my 5 flights so far. But in this particular case with Christmas, we're going to make a flight over to one city, which we'll make a pit stop in, and then we'll fly over to the desired location. So there is a lot of excitement on my end, but there's also a lot of nerves and everything. And even more hard for me, my parents are going together. My brother is bringing his girlfriend together, and my sister is bringing her boyfriend together. I don't have anybody. I mean, as I said, I'm single, and this is not me asking for a date. Like, it's funny. Like, I feel like I should be in a movie plotline where, hey, we're going on a Christmas vacation, and everybody's wondering, why am I not dating somebody? Why can't I date someone and all there? Like, why can't I find a date? Like, you need to find someone to date. And I look around, and I find this random girl that, I say, hey, would you, here, I'll pay you a certain amount to be my date, I'm going to pay this person, I mean, it sounds stupid. It's a crazy, cheesy rom-com movie, but after some time, you realize that, hey, you start to, like this girl, you start talking, you're having a good time being around her and everything, and right before, you pay her, something happens, and you realize that you're in love with her, and boom, next thing you know, you're together in the movie. Hey, great movie. Let's see a sequel if it's possible, but no, it's not really. It's going to be hard for me because 7 people on a trip, 3 couples, 1 black sheep. Yeah, I said it. I'm the black sheep. Like, I'm the odd person out. And I know that everyone's going to tell me you shouldn't feel like the odd person out, and they're going to be inclusive, try to include me in what all these get-togethers. But yeah, it's really hard for me to kind of process going on vacation with my family, knowing that I haven't met someone or I haven't had a relationship in my life, and God's timing is not really my timing or what I want to be. But hopefully that changes in the future. I know it's probably going to take a while, and I mean, look, I'm trying my best. I just got a lot of things going on in my life, with this job and my, this podcast and everything, and then just some other hobbies. But yeah, it's definitely going to be hard for me. But I'm going to do my best to make sure I have a really good time and make the most of this opportunity to have a great Christmas vacation. Because trust me, the last few Christmases have been really kind of dull for me, and not bad, but I need more excitement. I need more fun. And yeah, it may be the only time in my life, or it may be where we might not be able to get another Christmas vacation in for another couple of months or a couple of years before we go back and do something different. So, but I am looking forward to this trip. I'm hoping to get there. I'm hoping to make the most of the opportunity, and I cannot wait to let y'all guys know where I end up going. So, moving right along, that is my Christmas vacation plans, and I know I got to pack up real soon, and then just trying to be able to find the right clothing to this location, because I feel like I almost get intimidated when I, see what it is that I might be getting myself into, but hopefully I don't feel that way when I get there. I hope to feel more comfortable, and yeah, let's just go out there and let's enjoy ourselves a bit. So, all right, folks, that's my Christmas vacation topic, and now we're going to be discussing my NFL predictions for this upcoming week. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. All right, folks, it is time to get ourselves acquainted and get excited for our NFL Week 16 predictions. Now, as of right now, there is a game already taking place. The Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers are playing. So as of this recording, the game is still going on. I picked the Chargers to beat the Broncos, but we'll wait and see on that. Let me see if I get an update going on right now. It's actually Denver currently leading 24-13 with 4:56 to go in the third quarter. So not off to a great start this week, but we'll wait and see if that changes as well. So I picked the Chargers to beat Denver, but we'll see if they can turn it around. Now, last week I ended up going 10-6, so as of now, my record overall is 150-74. So I got 150 wins this season out of the gate. All right, so let's start off with Week 16, and we're going to actually hold off on the four teams that are going to be playing on Christmas for this occasion, for last, just to get myself some excitement in talking about the other teams on this equation. So let's start off with the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Giants. Now, the Falcons have made a quarterback change. They're going to go with Michael Penix for the duration of the game, the season, as Kirk Cousins just continues to find ways to, struggle. And the Falcons were once a team that looked to be a threat to win the NFC South, but have not done a good job of that. So Penix is going to get the start. They're going up against the New York Giants, and a bit of a tough one to pick just because of the circumstances with these two teams. The Giants are 2-12. The Falcons are 7-7. But I think it's probably going to be the Atlanta Falcons who gets the win, while the Giants just continue to struggle down the field as well. The Detroit Lions taking on the Chicago Bears. The Bears have been eliminated from playoff contention. Caleb Williams continues to struggle. However, the Lions do have some big concerns as far as number of injuries, which could potentially derail their Super Bowl aspirations. And, some of the players are unfortunately lost for the season. So Detroit right now, they may be the top team in the NFL, but this is going to be a bit of a tough stretch for them. If they can't figure out a way to win without those key players, it's going to be a bit of a problem. But I think the Lions are going to take care of business, so I got them beating the Chicago Bears. Arizona and Carolina. This is an interesting game. The Cardinals are, looking to get themselves back into contention for the NFC West Division. They're currently 7-7. Carolina, it's funny. Like, everybody picked the Panthers, or a lot of people picked the Panthers to beat the Dallas Cowboys just because, Bryce Young was playing well while the Cowboys were struggling, and Carolina had the home game, and it looked like they were going to win, from the odds makers, but Dallas said, nah, not going to happen. So I, unfortunately, was one of those guys, one of those idiots that picked Carolina, so I regret that entirely. But for this occasion, I think Carolina is going to learn another hard lesson, and I think Arizona will take care of business against the Carolina Panthers. So Arizona gets the win to improve to 8-7. The Rams and the New York Jets. Now, a lot of drama with the New York Jets. They're 4-10, while the Rams are sitting at 8-6, and it's a home game for them. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff going on with New York, and I just don't know if they'll be able to finish the season with a lot of optimism, just in spite of their horrific record. So I'm picking the Rams to beat the Jets in New York. We got Philadelphia and Washington. Now, the NFC East has all but been clinched by the NFL. Actually, the Philadelphia Eagles have, secured at least a top spot, unless, of course, they were to lose these last 3 games. So right now, Washington looks to, start a winning streak, but I'm just having a hard time seeing that. I think Philadelphia is going to continue this incredible winning streak of theirs. They've won 10 games in a row, and despite of some rumored beef between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, I think the Eagles will have enough to beat the Commanders. But I still think the Commanders should be commended for making the NFC East really exciting to watch, because we don't have to worry about the Dallas Cowboys in contention for this period. So Washington, I hopefully make the playoffs, and Jaden Daniels has played incredible football this season. So Washington deserves all the praise and credit, but I think Philadelphia will get the win. We got Cincinnati and Cleveland, and folks, I think this is going to be a case where the Cincinnati Bengals are just trying to, finish the season strong, looking to get back to form. Cincinnati, I think, will take care of business against Cleveland. The Browns just continue to find ways to brown it up. We got Indianapolis and Tennessee. Pointless games since both teams are eliminated, but I think Indianapolis should be able to, look at this and just take advantage of this opportunity and beat Tennessee. So Indianapolis should win and, go to 7-8. But man, I'll tell you what, seeing the Colts last week against the Broncos, oh my gosh, that was horrific. I mean, how do you not read the defensive back coming in on a pick where you throw a not a flea flicker, but a double pass or something like that, or not quite a double pass, but it was a pass where you set the screen for the running back. He then throws the pass back to Anthony Richardson, the quarterback, but it gets intercepted and it's brought back for a touchdown. And oh my gosh, Jonathan Taylor, you got to carry the ball into the end zone before you drop it. Like, I am sick and tired of seeing players drop the ball before they score. Like, dude, you have to know when you're in the end zone before you drop the ball. Like, come on. I don't understand. What is it with these players? I'm sure I probably would make a mistake like that if I were in that situation, but it's just so frustrating. So, yeah, Indianapolis will win that game. We then have Minnesota against Seattle, and the Vikings are clearly playing some great football. I don't think they're being talked about as much as they should, because in the NFC, you're already seeing the Lions, you're already seeing the Eagles, but I think we should give Minnesota a lot of credit. They're definitely one of the strong teams this season. Could be a potential Super Bowl matchup. Hey, there's a possibility we could be a Vikings-Bills matchup. That would be something for America to love and watch. Vikings are sitting at 12-2. They're probably going to get this one, even though the game's in Seattle. I'm going to say Minnesota wins to go to 13-2 over the Seahawks. We got Buffalo and New England. I mean, is there any point of stopping Buffalo? I don't think there is. So I think Buffalo takes care of business against the Patriots, just continuing their recent dominance of the Patriots team, who are no longer coached by Bill Belichick, who has since decided to be the head coach at the University of North Carolina for reasons which I can't really understand, unless, of course, it's maybe because I heard a rumor his girlfriend is actually a college student or a graduate student in North Carolina. I don't know if that's true in a sense, but man, I don't understand Belichick. He's coming out of his shell, but it's kind of freaky. I kind of liked him better when he was like a menacing Jedi Darth Vader type personality, just to be real honest. It's a little weird and kind of creepy in a sense. But interesting to see Belichick go back into coaching. I'm not sure if that's going to work itself out. All right, back to the NFL. We got the Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm just a toss-up game. This is a hard one to pick just because neither team has really stood out lately. I'm just going to go ahead and say that the Raiders get this one since it's in Vegas. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you there, folks. So hopefully the Raiders get the win and Antonio Pierce can maybe find a way to keep his job even more. Miami and San Francisco. Now, Miami had a heartbreaking loss or a crushing loss to the Texans. Tua Tagovailoa, I mean, look, we could talk about all this stuff that's gone on with concussions and everything, but the Dolphins have been probably one of the two most disappointing teams because I think we expected more from them, at least this season. Same thing with the 49ers, although the 49ers have more of some excuses. Some excuses are valid, others are not. I still can't believe the guy quit on his team. Davion Campbell, I think the guy's name was, who just sat out and refused to go into the game, and he got cut by the 49ers. That is just bad luck for San Francisco in a way. A tough one to call, but, I mean, with the 49ers dealing with their injuries, I'm just going to say Miami should be able to respond back after the loss to Houston in a sense. We got Tampa Bay and Dallas, and Jerry Jones can get so excited and hyped up about the upcoming Netflix documentary to talk about America's team, the Cowboys, and this and that. If I were Tampa Bay and I saw that, yeah, I'd be a little bit offended. I think Tampa Bay should continue to roll, and Baker Mayfield should have a great game against the Cowboys. And, of course, we got Green Bay, and we got New Orleans. So, yeah, very exciting time for Green Bay and New Orleans just to get themselves, a nice game in there. I think ultimately it's going to be Green Bay just because the Packers are still, hanging out there while the Saints are just finding ways to lose again and again and again. So Green Bay will take care of New Orleans as well. Okay, so folks, I'm going to do something a little different this occasion. As we all know, the 4 teams that are going to be playing on Christmas, Kansas City, Houston, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. Those 4 teams will actually be playing on Saturday. I guess they're giving themselves a head start to prepare for the upcoming game on Christmas Day. But as of now, I'm actually going to be picking ahead of schedule. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to be picking the next 2 games for each team. So I'm going to be picking the Texans-Chiefs, the Steelers, the Ravens, and then I'm going to be picking the next week's games between the Texans-Ravens and the Chiefs-Steelers. So, here's how I see it. Kansas City will be in 2 tough games. Let's just be real honest. But I think Kansas City will take care of business in both. If there was one game that I think they could lose to, it more than likely might be against the Texans, just because Houston's defense has been playing lights out and is very intimidating. I'm not sure if the offense for the Texans can match Kansas City, but I think if the defense can make it very close, it should come down to the wire, unless Kansas City has some favorable hope for them. So I think Kansas City will take care of business against Houston, and I certainly think Kansas City will take care of business against Pittsburgh. So Kansas City goes 2-0 these next 2 games. I'm going to say the Ravens beat both Pittsburgh and Houston. It's tough for me to say because I really think there's a possibility the Texans could win one of those 2 games. But I somehow think the Ravens are just slightly, better in a way. Now, the Ravens are going to be playing down in Houston because the last few times the Texans play the Ravens, it's been up in Baltimore. So, but it's going to be really tough, I think, in a way, especially considering that it's a 4-day layoff between the 2 games for both teams as well. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope Houston can win one or both games, but for the time being, for these next 2 games, I'm going to say the Ravens and the Chiefs go 2-0, while the Steelers and the Texans unfortunately go 0-2. But hey, Texans, prove me wrong, okay? I want you guys to prove me wrong. I am willing to be the only guy that is going to say to prove me wrong, because trust me, folks, this Texans team needs some excitement in their lives, and the fans need some excitement. They need a great holiday season. They need a great January, and hopefully they need to have a great February as well if they were to get to the Super Bowl, which should happen, but ultimately it's going to be a very tough, it's going to be a tough stretch. But we'll see how that plays out. So I hope I'm wrong with the Texans, but let's get ourselves excited for a big holiday season. Anyways, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of Krocking, Rocking, and Dropping. Hey, guys, listen. regardless of what you're doing, whether you're staying at home with family or you're going on the road to celebrate the Christmas season, I hope you guys have yourselves a great Christmas as well. And before I go, I want to give a special shout out to Lubbock, Texas. Now, I talked earlier about a flight that we had taken as a women's basketball team on our road trips from Beaumont, Houston, to Harlingen, Edinburgh, and then up to Dallas and Lubbock. We played Texas Tech, and it was one of those education day games. So we had to play in front of 13,000 screaming kids from local elementary, middle, and high schools in Lubbock, Texas area. And it was a hard-fought game. I mean, we battled Texas Tech really hard. Came down to the wire, but we just couldn't get the big shots. And the Texas Tech Red Raiders ended up beating us by 6 points. But I got to give a special shout-out to all the kids, because those kids, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm not sure how many games they've been to. They were so engaged throughout. Even when there were times where it was really tight and it could go either way, they were still engaged. They were still having fun. Like, it was the best field trip of their entire lives. I'm still jealous that I never got to go to a basketball game when I was younger. Like, these kids got to go to a basketball game. I had to go to an opera. An opera, for crying out loud. Like, I'm so disappointed by all that as well. But anyways, folks, give good shout out to Lubbock, Texas as well, and their fans. I hope they had a really great time, even if that meant having to beat our team as a process as well. Anyways, that is going to wrap things up here on this edition of Krocking, Locking, and Dropping. Hey guys, I hope you have yourselves a great Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals, and a Happy New Year. I love you guys. If you want to subscribe to this podcast, feel free to go to my YouTube channel, KWCLINE91. I post this podcast on the video portion so you can listen to it. I also post it on Spotify and Podbean. So I should be releasing this podcast really soon. Until then, I hope you guys have yourselves a great Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I will see you guys next year in 2025. Until then, have yourselves a great time, and let's go enjoy ourselves a great, magical Christmas season.